Chapter 17. Her brother Walid lived with his wife in a second floor flat in one of the newer apartment blocks. They were newly married and both worked for the same architecture office. Summer parked Hanan's car under the dim yellow glow of a street lamp. The driving lessons she had taken in Aberdeen had come in useful after all, though at first the change to driving on the right was difficult. Amir and Dahlia opened the car door and jumped out. "If we were in Scotland," she said to them as they crossed the road, "you would have had to sit in the back and wear seat belts." What she said made no sense to them. They had never seen anyone wear a seat belt, but they could not imagine a place far away called Scotland. The road they walked across was pitted with potholes, strewn with rubble from the new buildings. Bricks and scattering of cement were everywhere, the playthings of children who lived on the streets. There was a small canteen next to the building, and some of the children were crowded near the entrance. They were in torn, stained clothes, bare feet covered with dust up to their ankles. They wanted lollipops and gum and were laughing and jostling each other, their teeth bright white in the poorly lit street. And though summer had come back from rain and a rich city of the first world, the meagerness of this place was familiar. Shabbiness, as if the sun had burned away the lushness of life and left no room for luxuries or lies. As soon as Walid opened the door for them, the power failed. There was much confusion in the sudden dark, with Amir jumping about in a state of great excitement, laughing and calling Dahlia names because she was afraid. There was a fumble for candles and a torch, attempts to soothe Dahlia, a joke about summer cutting off the electricity, bringing in the darkness with her. Walid led them through the flat and out to sit on the balcony. This pleased the children, who started to pester the pigeons asleep inside a large crate caged with mesh. They stuck their fingers through the holes in the mesh, trying to reach the pigeons. All the neighboring houses and roads were in darkness, proof of a major power cut and not a fault in the building. Only far away shone the lights of the airport, yellow and red. In the canteen below, someone lit a hurricane lamp, and a shout in the street was answered by laughter. There was enough light from the moon and the stars for Summer to see her brother clearly, the jalabiya he was wearing, the large gap between his teeth when he smiled. He said that his wife had gone to German lesson. "Why is she learning German?" asked Samar, her mind on the stars, that they were innumerable, some further away than others. How could this be the same sky as the one in Aberdeen? "Do you think I know?" he said. "She wants to learn German. What can I say? Don't learn German." "I thought she was doing computing in Suk too. Everyone could look up at this sky, no admission fee, no money. In Scotland, there were shops for everything, selling everything, and no one could buy a sky like that." She was, but there weren't enough computers to go around, and she didn't get much chance on the machines. She got the notes, and she can use the one we have here. "Actually, I want to use your computer today," Summer said. "I need to write a letter, two really, but now there's no electricity." She turned to Amir and Dahlia. "Stop it, you two. Leave the birds alone." Amir banged the mesh with his palms. One of the pigeons stirred but did not wake up. "Inshallah, it will come back. Yesterday it was out at this time and back after 15 minutes. That would be good." She wondered why she did not care so much about the power cut, why she was not annoyed with this obstacle. Usually she liked getting things over with once she had reached a decision. Perhaps it was because of the sky and the breeze, dewy and clear, or the feeling all around of surrender. The stars had mocked the lights of the earth and won. "What were you doing before we came?" she asked. Watching a video, he scratched his head and yawned. Remember in the past we used to go to the cinema a lot? No one goes to the cinema now. By no one, he meant his circle of friends and family. It's a shame. Things change. You want to go away and come back and find everything the same? She shrugged in the dark. There was always a tone in his voice that seemed to her harsh, but she knew he didn't mean it. She was the one who had become too sensitive. She was the one who had been away for too long. I want to get away from here, he suddenly said. I'm fed up. I'm truly fed up. Of what? Her voice was light, as if she wanted to dilute his resentment. Not going forward. Things just aren't moving ahead. Where do you want to go? The Gulf or Saudi Arabia? The Gulf preferably. Go. He laughed. Don't be stupid. Everyone wants to go there and make themselves a bit of money. It's not so easy. He was genuinely amused, shaking his head and looking into her eyes. You have no idea, do you? You're blank. She started to laugh too and looked up at the stars. I'm blank. Dahlia came and leaned close to her, whispered in her ears, I want to pee. The bathroom was hot and airless. In the mirror over the sink, Summer saw her face by candlelight. How long would it be before she started to look as she should look? A dried-out widow, a faded figure in the background. I've finished, Dahlia said. Summer had to yank the toilet down 3 times before it finally flushed. Dahlia's anxious face settled into a smile, and Summer noticed that the cistern did not fill up again with water. It must be that when the electricity cuts, the pump that lifts the water up to this floor stops working. Let's try the taps. Dahlia twisted the tap. A few drops spluttered out noisily, and then there was nothing. They've got a pail, said Summer. There was a pail full of water in the bathtub and a metal pitcher. She filled the pitcher with water, and Dahlia washed her hands in the sink, the white bar of soap large and awkward in her hand. They walked back carefully through the darkness, Summer carrying the candle, to the coolness of the balcony. In their absence, Walid had brought a tray of Pepsi bottles and glasses with ice, plates of peanuts and dates. Amir and Dahlia were soothed by the drinks, made silent by the peanuts. Summer shook the ice in her glass. It was one of the things she had missed in Aberdeen, ice cubes in drinks, the feel of a cool drink in the heat. So, what do you think of this country of ours? Walid asked, putting his hands behind his head. He meant the power cut. Beautiful. He laughed. His laugh was loud and contagious. At last you've gone mad, he said in between his laughter. She smiled and said slowly, I swear by Allah Almighty, I see it more beautiful than anywhere else. Because she had mentioned Allah, her heart glowed, and because she spoke the truth. I'll give you a couple more weeks, he said. You'll take Amir and run back. She shrugged. I'm not going to have a job to go back to. I'm here today to write my letter of resignation and send it off. Why are you going to do that? It was almost a yell. He sat forward in his chair, intense now, no longer laughing. You must never do that. Do you think jobs are lying about waiting for people to pick them up? Do you think you're going to find a job here? I'll just have to try. Inshallah, I'll find something. She flicked away some peanut husks that had fallen on her lap and wished she hadn't told him. If his wife had been at home, he would have been more subdued, not so hyped up. Now he went on and on. What sort of work do you think you're going to find? Maybe the erasing illiteracy program. The pay will be nothing, nothing you could live on. You'll just regret it, and you've never taught before. They're desperate for people, they won't fuss. Yes, they won't fuss, but why? When you have a very good job already in Aberdeen, why give this up? Why give up a chance? I was supposed to be back at work last week. They're probably wondering what happened to me. That's not a reason to resign. She looked into her glass, melting ice, dark golden Pepsi. Living there wasn't a great success. How couldn't it be? You're so fortunate. A good job, a civilized place, none of the power cuts and strikes and whatnot. What's the matter with you? I don't know. Just like that. Just like that. There was guilt in her voice, a kind of stubbornness. She could see the irony of the situation. She had the option of a life abroad and wanted to stay while he was keen to leave and couldn't. She said as if to explain, being exiled isn't very nice. If you took Amir with you, you wouldn't be lonely, and it would be good for him. You don't know how schools here have become. I wouldn't be able to handle him on my own. She wished she could explain how desolate it would be, her and Amir alone in Aberdeen, the long winter evenings, the small room they would live in, just them, the two of them face to face, claustrophobic. That's rubbish. Here you are handling Amir and Hanan's children. Didn't Aunt Hassan fire the maid as soon as you came back? Summer laughed, relieved at the turn in the conversation. Walid smiled reluctantly. She said, no one fired anyone. The woman left. She just disappeared a week after I came back. And Aunt Hassan hasn't been able to find anyone else. Oh, really? He said with sarcasm. Aunt Hassan and Hanan put together couldn't find anyone. I don't mind, she said. I truly don't. The housework and Hanan's children kept her busy, tired her out so that there was no time to dream at night. How has she been with you? His voice was cautious now, the question tentative. If his wife had been at home, he would not have asked. Fine. You know that she kicked Ahmed out of the house? Summer shook her head, bit her lip. It was all her fault. He didn't deserve that. She wondered how many people knew the whole story, almost a scandal. The elderly religious man, already married with 2 wives, setting his eyes on a young widow, her husband not yet a year in his grave. And the foolish girl did not turn him down straight away. Instead, she said she would consider it. An educated girl like her. What happened? Her voice was quiet with reluctance, as if she didn't really want to know. Walid shifted in his chair. He came for a visit. I was there. It was the Eid. Sometime after you left, we were all just sitting there normally, then Mahasan suddenly turned on him and shouted, "Don't ever set foot in my house again. Tariq's wife will never be yours." And on and on. Oh my Lord. Yes, it was unpleasant. We went and apologized to him later, me and Hanan. He was staying with his brother in Safia. Hanan never told me about this. There's no need. The whole matter is finished. I think he doesn't come to Khartoum so often now. Business isn't what it used to be. I've lost touch with him. He was cordial enough with us when we went to apologize, but things can't be the same again. He's a good person, she said. He was a lifelong family friend. When she was young, he used to lift her up to sit on top of his van. He used to give her sweets. She was never afraid of him. What he did was an exaggeration. Walid's tone was dismissive. She didn't say anything and he went on. I was just concerned with how Aunt Mahasan is with you, if you're comfortable living with her, especially if you're insistent on not going back to Aberdeen. She never speaks about what happened. As for living with her, Amir and I both have a share in the house. It's our right to be there. At, at one time, the house was shared between Mahassan, Hanan, and Tariq. After Tariq's death, Mahassan's share increased. Hanan's remained the same. Summer inherited a share, and to Amir went the biggest portion. The biggest in comparison to the others, but it was less than half of the house. None of them had the cash to buy the others out. If they sold the house and divided the money, it would not be enough for each of them to get a decent place elsewhere. It's not really the custom, Walid said, for a widow to live with her in-laws. It is as if you're giving the signal to everyone that you don't want to get married again. It doesn't matter. I don't really care what signal people get. He looked sad all of a sudden, and when he spoke, his voice was softer, childlike, her baby brother of long ago. I'm sorry, Summer. I'm sorry that I'm your only family left and I can't take you and Amir in. The thought of her and Amir living with Walid and his wife in their new flat was ridiculous enough to make her want to laugh out loud, but she controlled herself and in the silence caught some of Walid's change of mood. His words, I am your only family left, and an awareness of their long dead parents, a longing for them and what they could have offered. I've been sitting here, she finally said to tease him, thinking you want to get rid of me and send me back to Aberdeen. Instead, you want me and Amir right here with you so that your wife will go mad and return to her father's house. He frowned and became his own irritated self. Of course, you have to go back to your job in Aberdeen. She tousled his hair and gave him a hug. The neon light above their head buzzed, glowed, and came on. Some of the street lights blinked. Hey! Yelled the children and rushed indoors to the light of the sitting room. The computer was on the dining table, swathed in plastic covers. The printer, similarly covered, was on the nearby sideboard. Summer pulled out the dining chair that faced the monitor and sat down. The end of the power cut brought with it noisiness. The loud television, the purr of the air cooler, and from the bathroom she could hear the toilet filling up with water. So how do I get this computer to work? She asked Walid, who was telling the children that he didn't have any cartoon videos. I thought we agreed that you weren't going to resign. He came over to her and frowned. No. You're really hard-headed. You're not going to take my advice, are you? When she shook her head, he shrugged and began to unveil his precious computer, lifting up the layers of plastic covers that protected it from dust. Everything was precious in Khartoum, even ink and paper, because it was all imported, so hard to replace. It was not difficult to write the letter. She had handwritten it at home and just needed to type it, then print it out. She needed 2 copies, the same wording, but one addressed to personnel, another to her head of department. That was the normal procedure for resigning. She wrote family obligations as the reason she could not leave Khartoum and come back to Aberdeen. Walid hovered around her as she wrote. I'll do the printing, he said when she finished and shooed her out of the way. The letters slid out of the printer smoothly, one after the other. Isles, said Walid as he lifted the second letter. Professor R. Isles. An unusual name. Yes, he's head of the department. For months, weeks, she had not said his name, not once, not heard it once, nor said it once, even in a whisper, to herself. Now to Walid she said, her voice too bright, guess what the R stands for? Richard? No. Ronald Reagan? Don't be silly. I give up, he said, dusting the computer screen with a cloth that he took out of a plastic pouch. I'm not dying to know. Ray. She mumbled, mispronouncing his name. She wiped her hand on her skirt. Rye, Rye, said Woody, putting the cover back over the machine. She smiled. Ray was an opinion in Arabic, she said, looking away. He had lots of opinions.